Yo, what's going on, guys? Happy Monday, man. As you know, we prepare ourselves to get ready for the 4th of July. Turns out there's actually pretty good fights and some notable fights over the weekend on Saturday. You got the return of Keyshawn Davis versus Miguel Madueño. You got Shakur Stevenson fighting Artem Havanosian, Artem Haratunian. I'm not too sure, but the same guy that fought Frank Martin, that could be a potentially a good fight. Hopefully, Shakur he's gonna look much better in this fight because Artem is he's no Edwin de los Santos, but so I expect but I expect Shakur to try to prove a point and make a statement and just show that there's quote unquote levels to this. So hopefully we get a very entertaining bout on his behalf. So I'm shooting for a knockout. If Shakur comes out here and goes the distance, I mean, whatever's, bro. But if you get the knockout, at least you can say, like, whoa, if Frank Martin went the distance and he was down and he needed the last round, knockdown to win on the scorecards, imagine what I can do for Tank. Type of rhetoric shit that people are going to be saying after this fight. But, Frank Martin's a good little fighter, but he not special, right? And as you saw, he was afraid of Tank. That's it. He was afraid of Tank. And Tank caught him at a good time. And again, so Shakur should be able to win this fight by knockout. The other kid, Artem, he's a good boxer, right? But there's nothing that kid can do that's better than Shakur. Doesn't have better footwork, combination, punching power, speed, control with the jab, IQ, right? And for all intents and purposes, I mean, at least the way I saw it, Shakur's coming off a defeat, right? Because if it wasn't a defeat, why did he have to apologize to Bud Crawford and in attendance? He lost that night. Edwin beat him. Edwin could do everything, but he can do it better because it was much more powerful and it came with speed. Edwin, bar for bar, athleticism. He can match the IQ of Shakur. Shakur will never, ever. You guys know that scene from Rush Hour? Shakur will never fight Edwin de los Santos in his life ever again. By that same token, neither will Rayo Venezuela. And you see how both Rayo and Shakur have Edwin de los Santos' name? The way I look at it, before these guys can call themselves champion, hold on to a belt, or even try to go another route, well, I mean, if you go another route, it is what it is. It makes sense because, why would you want the Edwin de los Santos problems? The same thing with Tank. Why would Tank want Pitbull Cruz problems? Anyway, so I expect Shakur to dominate and win by knockout, which I'm sure that he will against the German Artem. With that being said, Keyshawn Davis is fighting Miguel Madueño. Keyshawn is coming off an amazing performance against Pedraza. No one was able to dominate at 140 Pedraza the way Keyshawn Davis did. Each round, he had a different game plan. It was amazing, man. It was simply amazing. But the fight that I'm most looking forward to, and I could be on the wrong here, and I think it'll be the best fight of the weekend, and I don't think a lot of people are going to be talking about leading up, but it's going to be William Camarón Zepeda versus Giovanni Cabrera. This has all the makings. All right, now I'm going to gas up my neighbor because, Giovanni Cabrera, he used to be my neighbor. But what I'm going to say is Gio Cabrera has all the makings of making it an epic night. I think we might be getting a similar night when Chon Cepeda, another Freddie Roach fighter, fought Ivan Baranchenko. In that particular fight, there was like 7 or 8 knockdowns. Ivan Baranchyk is a fucking force. Some muscular ass dude that throws with all his might, but doesn't move his head off the center line. And Chon was able to, get dropped 4 times and then finish and sleep Ivan Baranchyk. I think we have another nice similar amongst us this Saturday when William Camarón Zepeda faces off Giovanni Cabrera. When I look at both of these fighters, right, Giovanni Cabrera and alongside William Zepeda, not only do they look alike, but I'm going to say that Giovanni Cabrera has a better resume than Camarón Zepeda. I think Gio has a better resume than Zepeda. Okay? Because for all intents and purposes, those 30 victories that El Camarón has, and 26 are coming by the way of knockout, they're against nobody notable. He didn't knock out Jojo Diaz, but he made sure to never lose a round, and he threw 150 punches per round, right? Or some similar number of that nature. And then obviously Zepeda ragdolled Maxie Hughes. I've never seen a fighter like Maxie Hughes ever be so dominated. I've never seen a fighter like Maxie Hughes be dominated and just be completely overwhelmed and blitzed. And you just think to yourself, bro, when are they going to throw in the towel? Like in recent memory, I haven't seen a performance like that. Camarón is a problem, man. He's a volume puncher. He doesn't necessarily have a one-punch KO power. It's always an accumulation, a barrage, a blitz of punches that, it just overwhelms you. And you're like, dude, what the fuck, man? But with the complicated fencing-like style of Gio Cabrera, I think Cabrera can make this a boring fight. But if push comes to shove, if he does get caught and dropped, maybe Freddie Roach can instill some confidence in Gio and tell him, bro, you need a knockout. You got to go for the knockout. You can drop Zepeda and you can beat him. I don't know. I just think we have one of those amazing nights among us when these two square off. Gio, when he fought Pitbull Cruz, and I don't care who it is, anybody that's going to fight Pitbull Cruz, you're in for a long night. You're in for 36 minutes of pain and punishment. And there's just no way about it. But what I liked about that performance from Gio, I didn't see it a split decision at all. I had Pitbull Cruz winning dominantly, probably like 9 rounds to 3, just because Gio doesn't sit on his punches, man. He's one of the only Freddie Roach fighters that just doesn't commit to his shots. Every time that he's throwing a punch, he's already looking to he's looking to retreat. He's got this like very upward stance, right? Let me show you guys. He has this very upward stance where he's not ever chin tucked down, his hands up. He's almost just like walking tall, walking straight up, his hands at his waist. It's fencing. It's just like jab, jab, poke. He's basically like a Shakur Stevenson fighter, that's always going to be fighting off the back foot, which puzzles me because he's got speed. He's got power. And I'm just like, bro, like, trust your power. And you know that he's got power because he was able to drop Gabriel Flores like 4 or 5 times in that fight. But it's not necessarily that concussive power. But yeah, man, I think Gio can pull the upset. Or maybe I'm just talking myself into a mess because the bookies have this fight like a 7 or 10-1 odds in favor of Camarón Zepeda. And believe me, Zepeda probably might win and he should win, but ain't no way in hell Gio is a 10-1 underdog. Gio should never be a 10-1 underdog. And if his chin tolerance, his pain tolerance, the chin that he showed, people couldn't even drop him once. So that should let you know that Camarón is in it for this is gonna be a good fight. This is gonna be a very good fight. As I'm studying some tape and watching Cabrera, I don't I don't understand why he chooses to fight like this. And I don't understand how Freddie Roach. Now, Freddie Roach hasn't always been Cabrera's main trainer. I was reading an article on Boxing Scene, how basically Gio, he let go of his trainer and his manager, and he went back to living on the south side of Chicago. And the property manager knew Freddie Roach. And he goes, you know what, bro, I'm going to hook you up with Freddie Roach at the Wild Card Gym. Just give me some time. I'm going to use the word of mouth. And then, boom, I'm going to get you over there. And he did. He followed through, and he became Manny Pacquiao's sparring partner for a bit. Well, as we saw his pain tolerance and his chin that he showed that night against Pitbull Cruz on the undercard of Tank Davis, he showed you why Manny Pacquiao kept him around, right? The kid can box, and he can take punishment. He's not there to lay down and quit. But I'm still surprised that Freddie Roach, in his short amount of time, has not been able to mold and turn Giovanni Cabrera and to give him an understanding, right, of how to really rely on your power and throw proper punches rather than like this fencing-like, backtracking, retreating style that he does. I just don't understand it for like the day of me, bro. I'm just like, what? Bro, like, I don't know, man. Like, one of the things that I've always failed to understand is that when you have an impeccable chin and you have great punch tolerance, like Giovanni Cabrera does, don't abuse it. You got to protect it, right? It's like Brandon Rios. It is like one of boxing's, I don't know. I don't really know how to develop a chin. Like how do you know that you can take so many punches? Is it in sparring? Do you chew a lot of bubble gum? Like, what the hell? You know what I'm saying? Do you do neck workouts like Triple G on the mat and Pitbull Cruz, doing headstands type of shit? Are you a break dancer spinning with a beanie on the center of the ring? Like, whatever the case may be, you still got to protect that chin and have good defense and slip. But one of the best ways to protect, your strongest asset if you have a great chin is your offense. The only way to get the other dude to stop is by you making him stop. And we know Camarón Zepeda is going to throw damn near 100 punches per round. Zepeda, to his flaw and to his strength, he doesn't want to throw 1 or 2, 3 punches like Shakur Stevenson and then run away for the next 2 minutes and 50 seconds of each round just to score the winning round, a 10-9. No, Zepeda wants to punish you. He wants to knock you down. He wants to make you quit, right? He's essentially like Lomachenko. They're going to get you out of there with a flurry of punches, overwhelm you, and to the point where you'd be like, you know what, güey? Ya no quiero pelear, güey. Like, no más, right? So Camarón has to understand that, where no one is expecting you. You have on paper 22 wins, 1 loss, and 7 knockouts. So they're expecting you to be boring. People don't remember you on the performance that you had against Gabriel Flores or Elijah Pierce, right? They remember you how you looked against Pitbull Cruz and how he was basically tossing you around like a rag doll. Your head is going one way, your face is going the other, your hair is going up and down. The mouthpiece fucking flew to the 10th row. Your shoes, you guys get what I'm going with this. But regardless, even after all I've stated, I think Cabrera can pull something out of Chon Cepeda when he fought Ivan Baranchenko and gave us the fight of the year. I think he's going to have to if he wants to be victorious. Anyway, let me go to this Boxing Scene article. I moved to the south side of Chicago, and the property manager said he knew Freddie Roach and said, "Kid, I'm going to help you set up a meeting," said Cabrera, 29 years old at the time. So I drove to Las Vegas to meet with his uncle, Chuck Cameron, one of Freddie's longtime friends who had given him a job in the 80s while Freddie was boxing. I packed up all my stuff in my car and drove to Las Vegas, hoping to impress this guy so he would set up a meeting with Freddie. They went to dinner at the area resort and casino, and the meeting went well. After dinner, it was decided that Cabrera would meet Roach. I showed up to the gym the next day, and I think it was around July 18th, the day before my birthday, Cabrera said, Manny Pacquiao had just arrived for his fight against Errol Spence, who was then replaced by Yordenis Ugas. As I was pulling up to the gym, he was leaving, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know? Roach addressed him as the Chicago Kid when he walked into the gym. After a brief introduction, they got down to business. He didn't really look impressed, Cabrera recalled. He said, well, if you're good, you can stay. We'll see what happens. 2 days later, Cabrera found out, coming off a lengthy layoff, standing in one of the most famous boxing gyms in the world, the Wild Card Gym, he received some big news. Hey, Gio, Manny Pacquiao wants to meet you, Cabrera says, Roach told him. Maybe if he likes you, you could spar him on Saturday. 5 minutes before Manny Pacquiao arrived, he said, hey, Pacquiao, just fired 2 of his sparring partners. He wants to go 6 rounds with you right now, which was exciting and equally terrifying for the young Cabrera. Just a little context, he had been inactive for a year. Then the pandemic happened, and here I am facing an icon. Anyway, man, if you guys had the opportunity to read this Boxing Scene article, it was really good. And that's basically the tale and story of Giovanni Cabrera and how he landed with Freddie Roach at the Wild Card Gym. Now, I'm going to say this. Just because you are a good sparring partner, right? Just because you are a good sparring partner and you are Manny Pacquiao's sparring partner, that lets me know a couple of things. One, you don't quit. Because Pacquiao gets rid of the dudes that can't last a couple rounds with him. So you don't quit. 2, you give Pacquiao good work, right? That's why Amir Khan was one of Manny Pacquiao's main sparring partners, because when you put that headgear on Amir Khan, he doesn't have to worry about getting concussed because of the, the headgear and the bigger gloves, but his hand speed and his boxing circling ability is always going to complicate people in the gym. That's why Shakur always dominates fools at the boxing in sparring, because the minute you put that headgear on, Shakur feels like with those big gloves, you can never beat me. I'm going to be fast. I'm going to block all your shots. You ain't going to, test this chin. You take the headgear off. You don't have the extra padded. You go back onto 8, 10-ounce gloves. Then he's going to run away from you like he did against Nakatalia and Edwin de los Santos. Get what I'm going with here? So Giovanni is probably such a complicated fighting style for Pacquiao that I was like, shit, this fucking kid definitely lasted and withstood the punishment past 6 rounds. I don't know. That's just the way I see it. So as I'm studying all of these fights, there's basically only been one fight where Cabrera looks horrible, and that was against Pitbull Cruz. But I think everybody's going to look horrible against Pitbull Cruz. It's never going to be an easy fight fighting Pitbull Cruz. He's got impeccable tight defense, chin tucked down. He's always going to win because he's the lower fighter with the shorter stance, even making himself fighter, shorter. He's got a fucking big-ass head that's bald. Like, like, good luck. And then he's fucking strong, and then he punches with you. Everyone's going to have a hard time with old boy Pitbull Cruz. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to be in a fucking dogfight, phone booth fight. Like, it's never going to be fun. You're going to come out there with bumps and bruises. If you're trying to look pretty, stay away from Pitbull Cruz. Anyway, I say all that because I want to tell you that Camarón Zepeda isn't Pitbull Cruz. Camarón has been dropped. Pitbull never. Camarón throws a lot of punches. Pitbull doesn't, right? Pitbull throws quality shots, punches with you. Zepeda, he don't do that. It's going to be an interesting clash of styles. I think Cabrera can pull the upset, man. I don't think that he will drop Zepeda. Zepeda is fundamentally a better overall fighter than Cabrera, mainly because Cabrera's posture, his hands down, his chin right up, he's not defensively responsible, but he's got good footwork and he's always looking to, get out of dodge. So it should be tricky. It should be a little bit tricky. But I just think from a matchmaking standpoint, Golden Boy, they have a better understanding, and it's very rare that they put their fighters in 50-50 fights. They give you good fights for the limited roster that they have, but again, they usually get their matchmaking correct. But I think this is one of those styles where I think they're preparing Camarón Zepeda. If Camarón cannot look impressive and dominant against Giovanni Cabrera, Well, how good is Zepeda going to look up against a guy like Tank Davis, a Shakur Stevenson, hell, a Frank Martin, right? If you can't get past Giovanni Cabrera and dominate him, then I know damn sure you ain't going to dominate those other three guys. Furthermore, I want to also ask this. How good is Camarón Zepeda? He's been at 135 for a while now. Can he be a champion at 135? Can he be a champion at 140? How about 147? I say this because if you say no, he can't be a three-time divisional champion, then we acknowledge that 135 is the best that he can possibly be. And if he's only going to be a champion at one weight class, can he become undisputed? Right? Because I'm not saying that there's not a big market for guys like William Zepeda, because obviously there is, but usually you got to play the pound for pound game. And there's definitely no market, and it's a very minimal market for guys like Giovanni Cabrera. Historically speaking, guys like him that retreat, that don't throw a lot of punches, that have minimal knockouts, but have an understanding of surviving or boxing IQ, like Miguel Vasquez, Mauricio Herrera, Giovanni Cabrera, those kind of fighters, boxing uses for their main attractions to get experience, go the distance, and then build off of, right? Where on the flip side, what is the upside of a guy like Camarón, right? Because he has 30 fucking bouts, 26 by knockout, basically a similar statistical, background of a guy like Tank Davis, but how come Camarón isn't a champion yet? How come he's still fighting the similar like fighters of a Maxie Hughes? And that's all I got to ask and pretty much end that segment. How many more fights are you going to find for Camarón Zepeda to dominate? Right? It happened with Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez. And what happened when you finally stepped up to the test against a guy like Bivol, where he gets completely dominated and don't win nothing but 3 rounds and don't want to even throw his hands other than a jab. Teofimo Lopez, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I was not impressed by his performance against Steve Claggett. I did not have him winning 12 rounds either. When I was watching the first couple of rounds, I was giving it to Steve Claggett. I'm like, yes, these rounds are close. Yes, these rounds are close, but at the end of the day, it's like, who's pressing the fight? Who's making the fight? And Teo's getting his head snapped back. They didn't respect anything of Steve Claggett was doing. Chin tucked down, hands up, catching and parrying and rolling with the shots, always sneaking his little jab, right? He didn't really have that knockout concussive power that his resume shows on paper. But at the end of the day, like, it was a really good fight. And how can you say it was 12-0? In no world is that a shutout. I don't know, man. I was quite shocked, man. I was quite shocked by Top Rank, because supposedly Teofimo Lopez is he goes back and forth with Bob Arum, Top Rank, and ESPN. I don't know if you guys saw that interview at the Danza Project, right? That I showed about sometime last week when we were talking about like betting and things of that nature. But Teofimo always, it's very strange, right? Just like his boxing career and just like his interviews, they're very strange. Teofimo, like, at one point is very grateful towards ESPN. And then in the next sentence, he's immediately criticizing ESPN because they don't give him more exposure. But at the same time, he's like, well, thank you, bro, because like you guys give me this platform. But like, fuck you guys, ESPN. I know what you guys are all about. I'm going to use your resources to make my connects. And I'm going to use Willy Wonka bars to make a deal with Nestle. And that's how I got the Aquafina or the essential water. Like, he's a very polarizing, like, relaxed Tio. I understand that you're seeking truth and you're seeking knowledge. And then when you find and harp upon this knowledge, you want to spread it to the rest of the world. But sometimes you got to keep it to yourself and just soak it in and try to interpret the facts to then, from a cynical standpoint, just help yourself. Don't try to help others, because then, not saying that others aren't, you know, observing and soaking in, but the way you go about, you know, preaching your truth comes off a little like like lunacy. But anyway, man, going back to the Steve Claggett fight, Teofimo Lopez better stay at 140. He should not try to move up to 147. Yo, Joshua Cabrera, what's going on, bro? He goes, El Cabrón Cabrera. Yeah, man. Shit. I think he's got it in him, man. I think he can pull the upset. I'm gonna be rooting for him, man. You know, it's time that he gets a big notable win, you know, because he's been having tough fights. He's been fighting and beating and competing against a lot of undefeated fighters, or a lot of fighters that he wasn't supposed to win, you know, like Gabe Flores, Elijah Pierce, you know. And for him to not duck the smoke with Pitbull Cruz, like, I'm gonna give him his credit, man. But anyway, so hopefully he comes through and he wins. Going actually back to that topic, I feel there is a huge opportunity for boxers and the sport of boxing, just like many sports. Excuse me, man. I think I'm losing my voice. I think there's a huge and missed opportunity for many sports and the sport of boxing, and having a big Super Bowl weekend on the 4th of July, July weekend. You know, a lot of people, most people, you know, they go to the lake, they go to the beach, they're popping fireworks, right? And wherever they may be, depending on, you know, where they're hosting the fireworks show. But a lot of people are at home, they're barbecuing, they're having the time off, you know, they're staying at home with huge family gatherings. And they're either watching The Patriot by Mel Gibson, you know, but at the end of the day, they end up going home right after and they're buzzed and they turn on the TV, right? Boxing needs to have a Super Bowl weekend on the 4th of July weekend, right? It's huge, right? And I think you guys will see that a lot of people are going to be tuning in for Shakur Stevenson fights on this weekend, because at the end of the day, look at it like this. If you go to an open arena, an open stadium, man, I think I'm going to have to end this live. I'm fucking losing my voice. Yo, Speed and Joe are not here. But like as I was saying, let's say you're going to the 4th of July weekend, and, you know, the 4th of July is on Thursday, but there's big boxing fights on Saturday. Well, I can go to the boxing fights on Saturday as well. And if the commission, the athletic commission, or the promoter is smart enough, they pop fireworks at the stadium. Hey, guys, not only are you guys getting these amazing boxing fights, but we're going to be popping fireworks also at that night. Come through. Boxing needs to capitalize on these type of days and on the weekends, especially like right now, and host huge mega fights. You know, it's going to entice the viewer and the person to attend these events, these boxing events on the 4th of July weekend, Independence, get drunk, spend money, and watch a fireworks show at a fucking stadium. It would be like Disneyland, but for boxing. Hopefully, Camarón and Cabrera can steal the show. And hopefully Shakur gets the knockout and people can, you know, be like, oh man, we got fireworks and we got amazing fights. You guys get what I'm saying? Anyway, I gotta end this kind of short, but yeah, man, Teofimo Lopez, he better stay his ass at 140. I don't see him excelling and having a lot of success at 147. I think you know, he's food at 147. And the best thing that he can do is just maybe try to age the 147 fighters out. I can see Teofimo beating, you know, a Mario Barrios, but Mario Barrios didn't really beat anybody to become a champion. They gave him a vacant title, and he fought Marcos Maidana's brother, Fabian, in which Mario's didn't really look too good. In fact, Mario Barrios was getting beat. And then all of a sudden, Fabian Maidana doesn't want to let go of his punches. Like, you got this dude's face, bruised up, swelled up, it's damn near shut, and you stop throwing punches, right? I'm talking about Fabian Maidana here. Then he gets dropped, and then he refuses to let his hands go even more so. So, a guy like Teofimo Lopez could beat a Mario Barrios, but Teo, I think he's maxed out at 140. I don't think Teo can go to 154 at 160. He's too inconsistent, but to Teofimo's credit, I think he's done a lot of great things, extremely fast, extremely young, but I think he's like plateaued, right? He's plateaued. Not only that, he shined extremely bright really early, and I don't think there's anything in terms of right now where, like, we've seen the best out of Teofimo Lopez. That was against Josh Taylor, an aging fighter. That was against Lomachenko, also another older aging fighter. But when he fights people that are his age, his youth, his fighting spirit, like a Sandor Marin, a Jermaine Ortiz, I don't know, even an older Steve Claggett or George Kambosos, Teo doesn't look that dominant. That inconsistency will get his ass hurt at 147. Fucking around guys with Brian Norman, even Giovanni Santillan. I can see these dudes hurting Teofimo Lopez. We talked about this in the past, and I'm actually in favor of a lot of these father-trainer-son relationships. I think all of these fathers have done great. Angel Garcia did great with Danny Garcia. Ruben Guerrero did extremely well with Robert Guerrero. Mayweather Sr. with Mayweather Jr. The list goes on. A lot of these father and son relationships, I'm in favor of them. Who knows you best, and what's much more inspirational than your father giving you knowledge and you becoming a champion with your father as your guidance counselor, essentially, right? Giving you all this sabiduría, wisdom, right? Jose Benavides Sr. has trained David and his son extremely well, accomplished a lot of great things. There's more upside with these father relationships than there is downside. But with that being said, just like all of these fathers, they have their limitations. And I think it's one of the most underappreciated mindsets of Terrence Crawford that he has 3 really good trainers. So imagine if you already have a good trainer, why can't you have a second? Look when Anthony Joshua incorporated Robert Garcia into his, into a training camp. What if Anthony Joshua had Robert Garcia for the inside fighting ability and Mexican style fighting ability, his guy Angel Fernandez, and let's say he hired another guy at the same time, like, I don't know, give me a Virgil Hunter or Ronnie Shields or Ismael Salas. It doesn't hurt to have multiple trainers. Now you're just going to have to decipher and decide which one is going to be the main trainer. And that's one of the things that is extremely underappreciated of Terrence Bud Crawford, that a lot of his contemporaries aren't incorporating in their training camp, right? Like Canelo Alvarez, he has Eddie Reynoso. They've done an amazing job together. But you don't think Canelo would benefit in picking the brain or having there in assistance an Ismael Salas or a Robert Garcia? Now, to your point, you're going to be like, no, look how much he's accomplished without them. Well, I know, but there's some situations and mega fights that you learn from every single person, which I quite never understood why Canelo got upset with Golden Boy when he told him, bro, like, you might need a different trainer other than Eddie Reynoso, when he lost to Maidana, whatever the case may be. I understand loyalty. I'm never saying, like, stay away from him. But going back to Teofimo Lopez, he's got amazing athleticism, good instinctual fight instincts, but it's almost like he doesn't have a strategy going into his fights. He doesn't really know how to break down his opponents. But he had a great strategy against against Lomachenko. But then I ask you, what was his strategy against Nakatani? What was his strategy against Sandor Martin? Proper punch placement. He was reaching. Like, what about Jermaine Ortiz? It's funny. Teofimo Lopez can try to fight on the back foot against guys like that he just fought over Steve Claggett. But then by that same token, when guys try to fight him off the back foot and make it a quote unquote boring fight, because remember what happened on Saturday, Steve Claggett was pressing forward. He was making it very entertaining. Tio laid on the fucking ropes all night, and all of his like 60% of his punches, 70%, even 80% were being blocked by Steve Claggett. I think it was really into the 8th round and above that you start seeing like those uppercuts really penetrate through the guard of Steve, and that's when Steve was like getting rocked, and his nose was bleeding and his mouth, he was breathing through his mouth. But Steve Claggett was making the fight. He was pressing the action. But look, we talked about this in the past, but it's very nice to have the machine, riding behind you and misleading the public with CompuBox and Mark Kriegel's egregious scorecard. Yeah, man. I think that's all I got, man. I think I gotta keep it short. But yeah, man, as we approach the 4th of July weekend, man, hopefully boxing realizes that, bro, you can have amazing fight nights on this weekend and then give the fans at home and the fans that attended the fight night a fireworks show. It's an underutilized fight weekend date. And hopefully this is the start of something great and new for the sport of boxing. But man, on that note, man, I'll see you guys on the next one.